Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jeff Brooks. I'm the leader of West Berkshire Council, and this is the second Ask the Leader that we've actually undertaken. We will be doing this every three months or so, and it's wonderful to have lots of questions in tonight. Now, of course, those questions we know about, we've been able to prepare, but don't forget, you'll also be able to add questions into the link, into the chat, and I'm going to show you now Martin Dunstan, who's from our communications department, the manager there, will be helping me and fielding some of those questions and adding them into the mix. So what we've done, and we did this last time, it worked quite well, we've broken them down, the questions, into sections. And the sections tonight, and I'm going to go through them in this order, is young people, governance of the council, education, children and family services, then community services, highways, and waste. Now, I will make sure I cover questions in all of those. So although waste is last, and I know it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, we will get to it. We may not be able in an hour to answer all 36 questions, plus some coming in flight. But every one of the questions will get an answer written if I don't answer it this evening. So I'm going to kick off, and the first one up, or the first series of questions, are from young people who attend the Greenham Community Centre youth clubs and the Waterside Centre in Newbury youth clubs. And it's nice to get their input, making them feel part of their community in order to ask questions of what we're doing here. So without further ado, let me go into the first questions. We would like to have the Spider Park of the Nightingale Estate back with some new equipment. You can see it on the screen now. Why was it closed off anyway? It's been closed off for over 2 years, and there are very few outside places for children in the area. And then, could we have a larger skate park than the one at Diamond in Pigeons Farm? And could we have an all-weather purpose area accessible for the older young people on the Greenham estate? Now, this is exciting. I like these sort of opportunities, and I don't see why we can't pick these up. The specific play area you mentioned is actually managed by Newbury Town Council, but we'll get in touch with them, we'll refer to the matter to them, we'll work with them. So that's the specific play area you mentioned. But the other suggestions will involve Greenham Parish Council. I don't want to get too governmental here, but there are other stakeholders, other people involved. The suggestion of a skate ramp at Stroud Green, absolutely, let's consider that. Now, what I say to young people, and I'm saying this in Thatcham as well, where they want to put some ramps in, try to get a little group of you to be a sort of little representative body and tell us what you need. We'll engage with you, and you might be able to help design what you need, be part of that. We may need to raise some money because we can put some money in, but we may look to Greenham Common Trust and other places to also put some money in. I think these are good ideas trying to get out. And let's get on with this. And I'll be saying this to our sports and leisure team. The other part of it, and this will thread through this evening as well. You have councillors where you live. You need to use those councillors. There are questions tonight about what councillors do. Councillors are your representatives, and those people in Greenham should be talking to Billy Drummond, Eric Pattenden, and Phil Barnett, who are your councillors in Greenham. And they will be putting the pressure on the council, including me, to follow through on this. Because obviously, as the leader, I have 100 things every day to look at, but these people can keep me looking at them. And so I'm quite enthusiastic and positive about that. Not overnight, but don't forget, it's part of what you want as well. So you need to be part of the design. And this happened very well in Thatcham years ago when my own stepson was involved in the design of the skate park there at Dunstan Green. The next one is why is my parents' rent so expensive? Now, of course, we don't know who you are, and therefore we don't know the individual circumstances of your parents' rent. But although we don't have a lot of influence over the price of rents, Anyone having trouble paying their rent should contact their landlord or their letting agent to agree a repayment plan for any rent that is owed or in arrears. If someone's tried but is unable to reach an agreement, we can speak to your landlord on their behalf. Our housing options team here at the council, findable on our website, can help with a rent deposit guarantee if you qualify, can offer advice on affordability, can help your parents claim housing benefit towards your rent if they're on a low income or they're on benefits, and they can offer advice on discretionary housing payments. They can refer you to support with budgeting and managing the bills. We can help you understand how to be a good tenant and manage on your own, and advise on tenancy deposit protection and tenancy law. And there is the Household Support Fund, and I know I'm talking about lots of things and you're having to take a lot in here, but the Housing Support Fund can provide short-term financial help in some circumstances. There are things that can help that your parents may or may not know about. So I'm suggesting your parents get in touch with our housing options team, look it up in the website, get in touch with them. I'm happy if you want to come back to me directly, or Denise Gaines, who is our housing portfolio holder, and we'll try and give you as much help as we can. The next one, is there any way for public transport to be cheaper? Many families living outside the town can't afford it, and we miss out on things because of this, and we understand that. So, but there are within our bus operators a range of tickets which are designed for occasional and as well as regular passengers, including families. There's a national £3 single fare cap scheme. It's in place until the end of December this year on many bus services. So that's capped. That's the maximum is £3. Single fares may cost less than £3. Obviously, children and young persons singles fares are cheaper than corresponding adult fares. There are concessionary bus passes available. Plus Bus is a bus pass you can buy with a train ticket. I know it's frustrating, and we want people to use buses more, to take that strain off the roads, good for the environment, and you'll hear from me this evening that finances are tight. Some questions have acknowledged that. But we are pressing, and government is aware that we should make bus travel more accessible and more economic for people to use to get them out of cars. Now, I do have some ambitions in this. I won't air them tonight, but watch this space. And I wish you luck, and I do hope you're using the buses as much as you can. Are there any follow-ups to that at all while I've been speaking on the young people's section? Okay, thank you, Martin. We come on now to council governance. And Dave from Tilehurst says, why is it that every time I ring the offices of West Berkshire Council over the past year, I'm always number 2 in the queue? It doesn't matter when I call, or if I call back some hours later. But if one hangs on, the phone goes dead and one has to try again. That's frustrating. And we don't understand why. We're not getting that related to us of other people. We're not aware of others being impacted like that, Dave. But we will feed this through to Paula Williams, our customer services manager, who runs that, that exchange. She can look into your specific concerns. What I will also do, I will ask councillors to do test calls where they ring in and see how they're managed through to a different department, Dave, and see what our experience is, because we tend to ring direct numbers. But what we'll do, and we'll take the action to do some secret sort of telephone calls in to the main switchboard and see what our experience is. So contact Paula Williams. She will look at it anyway. I don't know if you've got your contact details. I presume so. And we'll follow up on it. Thank you. Now, Kerr from Thatcher. I understand the financial challenges that the council faces. I recognise that its funding comes from a mix of central government grants, council tax, business rates, other sources. We have statutory obligations. You're quite right, Kerr. And we have to deliver those statutory obligations, those statutory services, and we have to deliver them to a standard. So our standard on adult social care is good, acknowledged and inspected as such. And at the moment, and we've had an inspection recently, but on our children's services, it's good. And we expect it and hope, and are very much expecting it to remain good. But yes, you're right. We have to spend money on those statutory services. Council tax, he goes on to say, Kerr, I think it's a man, has been rising at a rate exceeding both inflation and wage growth. Correct. Council tax would double in 14 years if it stayed at 4.9%, 5%. Correct. That is unsustainable. Okay. And then he challenges us and says, do you have a long-term strategy to address this issue? And that's a very appropriate question. Because if you keep slicing annually some of your services down, it's just salami slicing without a strategy over 3 to 5 years to get them in balance. And I can tell you, and will be announcing quite soon, a new strategy, a new panel that will be looking at a 3 to 5 year efficiency, call it savings, I'll call it efficiency, such that we get the council spend down to what we can perceive as affordable. It does help us if the government give us a 3-year financial settlement, which means we know what those grants from government are going to be over the next 2-3 years. They've been doing 1-year settlements for quite some time. It's much harder to plan. But you know, when inflation went up towards 12%, and it stayed around that mark for 18 months to 2 years, well above 5%, councils continue to be capped at 4.99%. So therefore, to a degree, you could say the resident was a bit better off. But the cumulative effect of us being under inflation, and it's easy to forget we were, but it's only 3 years ago, is 12 million less in our budget than there would have been. Now, I'm not saying we should have chased inflation up, but Kel, what I'm saying is, while you may be paying more than inflation, and you're right, doubling every 14 years has to be managed better, it's unsustainable. If we were under when it was higher, there was a bit of benefit, but we're now paying for it. So it's a long-winded way of talking about some of the challenges we've got. But the assurance to you is that we have made savings, and quite a lot of them, which haven't impacted the public particularly hard. And the example I keep going back to, I've said it before, is when we came here and took over in May 23 as Liberal Democrat administration, we had nearly 300 temporary workers, freelance workers, contractors. We're down to about 100. That saved us £5 million annually. And we've still continued to deliver the services. We managed to recruit more staff directly instead of paying all those agency workers normally twice as much as a salaried person. So stuff we've done. The other one that comes into view, and I am labouring this because we'll come back to it over the course of the next 45 minutes. In terms of efficiency, AI, artificial intelligence, clever software, brilliant data mining, people are using it now, ChatGPT. We're starting to use that. Other councils start to use that. Governments start to use that. It will become more mature. It'll take another 3 to 5 years, but there'll be a huge payback. And we've got to harness that, and we've got to make savings as a result of that. And it will be doing things better, more efficiently. And sometimes when we're out to recruit for a post which is vacant, We may say, actually, we don't need to recruit that person because AI is helping us do that role. But that's still maturing right across the world. You're reading stories in the papers how AI is revolutionary. Well, not yet, but we can see it coming. Kurt, I hope that's helped. It is a long-winded way of talking about our financial pressures, but I'll come back to those, I'm sure, in a bit. Robert from Thiel, will the newly formed parliamentary constituency Reading West and Mid Berkshire add weight to the Reading Borough Council's claim to Tilehurst, Calcott, Pangbourne, Thiel, Purley, Tidmarsh, Sulham, Holybrook? And for people who may not know this, and it's had a fair bit of press, Reading Borough have said, if we, as West Berkshire Council, move into a bigger council called Ridgeway, they would wish to take some of our eastern parishes. I've been steadfast in saying no, that is not the right result for the residents in that area. And I have visited all of those areas and met hundreds of residents. And in the main, I can tell you, the vast majority wish to stay with the West Berkshire Council. Now, if those people in that area, and if Robert, you're from Thiel, if you don't want that to happen and you want to stay with West Berkshire, I need you and people like you to write to that MP, Liv Bailey, and say to her, you do not want to be part of Reading Borough, and you will remember, if she forces it through being of the right political colour in Westminster at the next election. I'm sorry to be so overtly political, but it is that sort of pressure, if you wish to stay with us, I need you to help me make. So this is one we need your help, and that's a big way of doing it. And I think that's answering your question quite directly. I hope I'm answering most questions, but quite directly tonight. Richard from Hungerford, what do councillors do as much as you make them? Are you using your councillor? Richard, in Hungerford, you've got Denise Gaines. She's been a community activist there for many years. You've got Dennis Bennyworth, known in the town. I'm not being political about this. These are your councillors. You've got Tony Vickers, lots of experience. You should be using those and going to them and saying, I need help on these issues. And that's the same right across the district. Know your councillors and get them to help represent you. We are the people's representatives. Now, there's more to it. There's more to it. That ward work of helping residents in the way that we can help them, perhaps with housing benefits and the like, as the one I just talked about in terms of rents, that's the sort of thing we can do. We can represent you, but we have to be in this building as well. In control of the council, we have to set the budget, we have to manage the finances, we have to manage the efficiencies. We are not operational, but we have to work with the officers to get them to deliver the best result possible. I spend, personally as leader, probably 30 hours a week in this building and another 15 at home, reading paperwork, writing emails, pressing and driving the change that every councillor has to do and we must do here. I have 9 other people on the front bench, the cabinet, and they're working hard in highways, in sport and leisure, in public protection, in health, in adult social care. Those people work very, very hard, but the ordinary council works hard too. And you should help make him or her. There is a basic allowance if you are a standard, what I call ward councillor, you're not on the front bench, of £8,768. I can tell you that a good councillor will earn that over and over and over again. And so much so that councillor is probably paid less than the national minimum wage or living wage. But that's not why we do it. There's a real sense of commitment on all parties. This is not a political conversation I'm having here, or a political push. All councillors come here to try and do good. That's what's in it for us, if you like. And you use us and you leverage your councillors. Many times I go and talk to residents and say, have you spoken to your councillor? They say, I don't know who it is. Not hard to find on the website. I hope that helps. There's a lot more to it, but that's a flavour of some of the things we do. And I'm moving on. I'm 20 minutes in, and I'm probably only through about 5 or 6 questions. am I into a different section now? Am I into, I'm still on governance, am I? Thank you, thank you. And is there anything coming in on the chat?
One on waste, which we'll pick up in a second.
Okay, I'll come on to waste. I may bring waste forward because I know people are particularly keen to talk about that. Mark from Thatcham, why, when you're given the West Berkshire community a proposal and get over 50% resounding no, that they are not in favour of the change, do you feel you have the right to ignore the response and go ahead anyway? Now, we don't know what he's referring to in terms of the issue. One thing that I have to keep saying is that a consultation is to gather evidence not only of people's wishes, but sometimes and many times people have come through and say, have you thought about doing it this way? Have you thought about doing it that way? So that's good evidence and intelligence that helps us with a final decision. I can also say to you, there are many occasions when the consultation has come back and said, no, we don't want you to do it, and we have not proceeded. There are a lot of those. I know there are some high-profile ones at the moment, which I'm not going to duck this evening, where you can argue we should not have done it because there was a majority of the responders to the consultation to tell us not to do so. But a consultation is not a referendum, and often people who are against something, don't like change, make their voice heard, and they're entitled. But a lot of people don't make their voice heard who say to themselves, that sounds all right. So I suppose on occasions, and I'm not saying it happens in every time, a vocal minority could, if we let them, win the day on something that we believe is still the right thing to do. So I'll take the pedestrianisation head on in Newbury Town, Northwick Street and the Market Square. It is a trial. That trial initial period ends at the end of November. We are gathering all sorts of information, feedback. We're almost doing a consultation within the trial. We did a consultation before. We're now doing a consultation within the trial. And in the new year, we'll be looking at it afresh and say, is it working in part? Is it working in whole? Is it not working at all? I am on record as saying if it's not working, it will stop. Waste will be another one. Black bins. I know it's coming in the next 37 minutes, but I'm going to push that one out until I take that later. But I will develop a little bit further. We did flag up that we might re-provide our resource centres for elderly people and those who might be less abled. We decided not to. There was a consultation and people came back, including staff, saying you shouldn't be doing this. We continued to look to say, could the voluntary sector do that, provide those services? We were not satisfied they could. We're not going ahead. Over the last two budget rounds, and there will be this one as well as we move into it, we'll be asking what people think about certain measures we wish to take. And they come back. Some say do it differently, and we take notice. Some say don't do it, and we take notice. Some say do it. Examples, we didn't reduce contributions to community transport. It was one we thought of doing. We didn't remove litter bins and dog waste bins from our grounds maintenance contract. There is plenty of examples, and it occurs to me to actually put a bit of a running total on the website of consultations that have gone out and how we responded to them. I think probably we need to look at that, and I want that as a takeaway, please. The score's on the doors. But we won't automatically knee-jerk to say people don't want it, and therefore we won't do it. I will tell you that I was around, I've been around over 30 years, when Northwick Street was pedestrianised in the late 90s. And the same thing happened. People said, don't do it. I think if we now said we put it back to cars through it during the day, people will probably say, don't do it. So there is a sort of getting used to something and realizing that overall it's to the good. But that's not to say we made our decision and our mind up before we get the consultation back. I hope that's helpful. I've got another one here that is about the Reading and Mid Berks constituency and the MP Liv Bailey. I don't think it's for me to comment, but the question is that the MP is extremely hard to contact. Now, I'm not going to say anything on that, except that we will refer that to the MP's office. If we've got your details, it's a Tilehurst resident, I would expect them to contact you directly and put it right. I'm going to be fair here because I know MPs get hundreds and hundreds of emails per week. Many, many times they have to come to the council to get something done that people have asked them to. And it's another reason why when you write to your MP, tell your local councillor as well. So there's huge weight of requests that MPs have to manage. So I'm not making excuses, but we will make sure that that is fed through to Liv Bailey's office. I hope that's helpful. I think I'm through governance. I'm going to do education next, and I've got Thomas from Thatcham, who says, why does it take nearly 2 years, 2 tribunal applications, 3 mediation applications, a full change of staff to get the provision my child needs for secondary school, even with 2 existing diagnoses? I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know enough about that case, and in some respects, there is some degree of privacy there that you might want to maintain. The SEND system, special education needs, is under really significant pressure. The growth in the demand is huge. It's increased. The capacity of services to manage this need has got to be limited. And the focus on this council will be to support all children and young people to make sure they get the best possible outcomes. But there is a process. There is an assessment. And Thomas, I am sorry that your assessment seemed to have been so arduous. And again, I say to people, you should contact your councillor. I don't know whereabouts you are in Thatcham. I'm Thatcham West. If you are Thatcham West, Thomas, and you want to bring that to me in detail, I will engage with you. There are things to be learned. We have introduced in the last 9 months, probably less actually, 3 or 4 months, a children's scrutiny committee. This is cross-party, and that committee will be looking at how the customer experience of SEND is taken. Thomas, you might get the opportunity, it's not up to me, but you might get the opportunity to present to that committee your personal experience, because that could well be a learning exercise for us. So we want to know, there are some instances where there can lead to delays. There are instances where the professionals would maybe have differing views on how best to meet the needs. But we will work collaboratively with you. And as I say, the offer there, Thomas, to tell us a bit more about it. I think the next question is from you, perhaps. It's Thomas from Thatcham again. How can the council work better with GPs and CHMS to ensure the health part of a health and children's plan? Make sure a child's poor mental health isn't a barrier to attending school. And that is a worry. Children not attending school now, being taught from home, it can work, but in many cases, it's not optimal at all. The social interaction with other children is so vital in their development. So the SEND system is reliant on all partners working effectively together to ensure a single approach is agreed that meets all the identified needs. We've established a cross-system SEND improvement board that brings together all partners to understand the pressures on the system and seek solutions. A joint SEND action plan has been agreed, setting out actions that all partners will take to drive improvements in the SEND system. Health colleagues are a key part of that. It's not just down to the council. But again, if you look at that plan, Thomas, which again should be available through the website, I'm happy to make sure it's sent to you, and you have observations, please share them with us. I'm moving now on to community services. Cornelia from Newbury talks about antisocial behaviour occurs quite frequently inside and outside during daytime at the Old Wagon and Horses pub. Fights and drunken behaviour often spill over into the square and streets where we walk with children and the elderly. This impacts on the ambience of our town, yes, the safety of our town. And so fights and drunken behaviour must be reported to the police particularly. At the time they're happening, dial 999, there's a fight. There's something going wrong, people are in danger. That provides the evidence. You might well get in a town centre a quick reaction, depends where the police are at the time. It supports also the need for licensing checks on the establishment, enforcement, which can be done in partnership with the police, and licensing, which is a council function. There are instances and options where we could develop a public spaces protection order, which is in place across the town centre, and they can then use that to actually manage this behaviour. So that exists in Newbury Town, exists in Thatcham. There are levers we can use here, Cornelia, to address this. I've not heard that on the Wagon and Horses or that area, the market square, marketplace. I've not seen it reported per se, but I'll keep my eye out for it, and I will ask Tom McCann, who's our councillor in charge of public protection, public safety, to keep it on his radar as well. Thank you. Lee from Newbury. It's great news on the plans for the 3G pitch at Faraday Road, but local clubs are desperate for such facilities in Newbury. How quickly could it be ready for them to use? Only yesterday, we looked at how quickly we can get this 3G pitch in. We have to put a planning application in to ourselves, but it is a separate part of the council, and the planning department will decide that we've got it right in terms of the plan for the pitch. That will take time. There will be a public consultation process in that, and there are statutory legal processes we have to go through and abide by. I'm hoping, and there is a concern there might be a delay because we have to get feedback and work with the Environment Agency as well. But talking yesterday, getting it through planning, getting it designed and out to tender, because you can't just give it to one organisation because you feel like it. You've got to go out to a tender process and get bids. That's appropriate. It's effective, value for money. And then you've got to agree who's going to do it, book it in, get it done. Lee, I think we're probably looking at the May timescale, May 26, possibly by the end of the football season. So football may stay on grass until the end of the season, and then it goes in. But we meet very regularly, monthly at least, to chase this development down. And therefore, there's a lot of eyes, including my own, to get that done as quickly as possible. Thank you for that. And it needs to be ready as soon as possible. John from Mortimer. What can be done to prevent the building of 350 houses on the western boundary of Mortimer, which will put extra strain on resources here, will have no transport links and will contribute nothing via SIL to the parish, SIL being the community infrastructure levy towards infrastructure, roads, schools and the like. What will we do about it? Now, this came up last night, and we will be making representation and working with, I think it's Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council. It came up last night in our district parish conference, and it was aired by councillors, parish councillors from Mortimer, and we took the action to get in touch with Basingstoke and Dean and say, hang on, this is a significant impact on our parish of Mortimer. We have a duty to cooperate. That is in law. We can't simply say to Basingstoke and Dean, you can't do it. We don't have that power. But we have the power to understand it, object to aspects of it, make the Secretary of State and the planning process aware, and do our best to protect Mortimer. And that we're committed to do. How are we doing in terms of anything coming through, Martin, while we're in flight?
So, no, it's just the question so far on the waste which we can come to. A few comments if we could take away on the questions you've got so far.
Okay.
It's going well.
Okay. I'm going to take waste after community services and before highways, because I see we've got 20 minutes left. I've got a few minutes left on the community services. I'll get through those and I'll jump to waste. Cornelia from Newbury. Noise pollution within the area is increasing and made worse by either motorbikes with no baffles or cars with straight-through exhaust. They should be fined and forced to adhere to regulated noise levels. I spot them. I know. I hear them. It's not many, but even the few there are make a huge, huge noise. I get it. And our public protection partnership is responsible for investigating statutory nuisance. It does include noise from vehicles, but only where the vehicle is stationary and within the curtilage of a premises. It does not extend to road traffic noise or modified vehicles on the road, and that's the law. So there are some constraints on us here. So concerns regarding noise disturbance from major roads such as motorways, dual carriageways are investigated by Highways England. Cornelia is talking about local roads. Noisy motorbikes and cars being driven in your area are investigated by the police, and you should report them directly to 101 if you get the registration number. I don't know, I would imagine you could do that anonymously, but anyway, that is you have recourse to there. You can also report antisocial behaviour of this nature to our Building Communities Together team. You'll find them on our website. We will take it seriously. It's very antisocial, and I don't know why people do it, but we'll work with people, Cornelia, to try and reduce it. Cornelia goes on also to say that we have an overflow of vape and tech repair shops. Can rentals be reduced for new and different types of businesses in the town? Well, the council's role in shop planning is to maintain and manage the available commercial floor space within the town centre. This means we give extra planning weight to protect and redevelop commercial units. We don't want them empty. Ensure their use, Class E, remains to provide space for retail, restaurants, service and other businesses. An overflow of vape and tech repair shops and whether rents can be reduced, this is really up to the rental market, I'm afraid. A landlord with an empty shop is not going to leave it empty if a vape shop comes along and says, I can pay the rent. And we don't have the powers to say, landlord, do not take that vape shop on. The market tends to decide on these things. Some people might remember years ago in Thatcham, every other shop seemed to be an estate agent. That's changed. But at that time I was asked, can you stop that? But the market prevails. So there is a high street rental auctions paper coming through to a briefing I'm on tomorrow. I'll be looking at that. I may follow up to you, Cornelia, but there are some constraints there in terms of town planning and what we can and can't do. Final one you've got, Cornelia. The cordoned off play area in Victoria Park has taken far too long to be repaired. I understand that. I'm told it is Newbury Town Council, and we'll feed that through to them on your behalf. I've got 20 minutes left, and I'm jumping to waste. I hope to get back to highways, but I know waste. It would be wrong of me not to jump into this one. Andy from Thatcham. With the new black bin collection moving to 3 weeks, how does the council think that no collection from the 19th of December 2025 to the 7th of January 2026 is realistic over the festive period? So he's talking about a particular period where he believes, and we know, more waste is generated. We hope and expect, and I'm going to talk a little bit about black bins now, that people will be and already are showing evidence of more recycling. I'll come back to Christmas in particular, but if I pick up the broader issue on black bins, I know people are upset, some people. I'm going to give you some facts and stats, and they are not something made up. They're all checkable. 11% of households, so 11 out of 100, were not putting their black bin out every fortnight anyway. They were missing gaps. 22% of the waste in the bin, the black bin, is food. There is a weekly food caddy collection. For people who have gardens, composting of peelings and fruit is a good way to do it if you have the space. And the food caddy collected weekly is meant to and should take the putrescible waste, the putrid stuff, the stuff that's likely to turn smelly, away on a weekly basis and get that 22% out of the black bin. Another 20% in the black bin could be recycled. Glass, plastic, cardboard, paper. And I think people generally wish to recycle, get in the groove and the habit of recycling. It's excellent for the planet. Sounds big when you're sitting in Little Newbury or West Berkshire, but we've all got to play a part in managing the recycling and our waste. We've all got to play a part, and most people do. But there was another threat to you. There is another threat. If we don't get recycling down, we already pay a tax to put to put waste in the ground, landfill tax. But the government are now telling us they will implement another tax where we incinerate energy from waste. It's burnt, it pushes out some energy, but again, it's not nice. They filter it, but the smoke comes out of the incinerator. You will have seen it, not in this area, but you will have seen it. And the government is saying, if you carry on as you are now, with your level of waste that is not recycled, you'll be paying £1.4 million in tax extra. And that is money we can spend on services. We have to get ahead of this. It should be here in a couple of years. We could have waited, then we're playing catch up and it's costing us. I think people will get used to the 3 weekly bin regime. And a lot of people are telling me that they can manage and they're already changing their habits a bit. I don't know if you know, but 20 tons extra of recycled material has been collected since the black bin change has come in. People are starting to change their habits and it's a healthy thing to do. So people will adjust, and there are people who are struggling. We're trying to help them, all sorts of ways to do that. I think there's a lot I'm seeing on the banner rolling across the bottom of the page where we can help, and there's a particular page, a number of pages available to you, and ideas. Coming back to Andy from Thatcham about Christmas. Again, the food will be collected, the food caddy. If you're throwing food away that could be eaten, then we all do it, but try to manage not to buy too much food at Christmas. It's something we do. I've done it since, since a child. We had too many chocolates and too much stuff. But we also give ourselves presents. Break your box down. Use your recycling for your cardboard. Wrapping paper. If you scrunch it up and it stays scrunched up, you can flatten it out and put it in your paper collection. I know it takes time, but we've got a bit of time over Christmas. If you scrunch it up and it opens again, I'm sorry, it has to go in black bin. The scrunch test. It's about recycling and managing your waste in a different way. And I hope I've given a whole bunch of reasons why we believe it is the right thing to do. We're not the first to do it by any means. They did it in Bracknell, I think about 3 years ago. We investigated that and asked them the issues. They are telling us that it's made a dramatic change and people have bought into it over time. It doesn't happen in the first 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks. I understand. Mandy says, if we on an elderly park home site, it's not really convenient for us. Again, we understand it's challenging, but I'm hoping that you can see there are ways to mitigate it. Somebody said there's lots of protests on next door. I see them. I'm not immune to social media. I don't tend to put much on it, but I read it. And yet I hope I've given enough reasons to say this was something we needed to grasp. We could carry on talking about that. We have 13 minutes left. I've got quite a few questions to go through. There also, of course, there are people living in apartments and flats, and there's no change there because they're using a combined big, waste receptacle. So that's 14,000 dwellings of the 68,000 dwellings across the district. In fact, about of those 68,000, with the 6,000 that people weren't putting out every 2 weeks, about 20,000 households wouldn't be directly affected by this. But we know the rest are, and we know some of them are having issues adjusting, and we're here to help. How are we doing over there? Is there anything I need to draw in from that? On this topic.
On waste, we do have a question from Julian, who's talking about booking a waste appointment on the website. He says his experience is that from start to finish there are about 7 different pages to go through, and asking why we make it so hard to book a waste appointment.
Really? I've done it myself. Is this an appointment for the household waste recycling centre?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some redundant clicks going on there. I've noticed myself. I'm clicking through for the sake of clicking through. I don't think it's 7. It might be, but yeah, it's irritating. We'll look at it. Absolutely. Anything more on black bins?
No.
Then there is one here on green bins from Martin from Purley. My question is reference to why the difference in green bin charges. And is it discrimination that there is a different fee structure for the green bin charge, depending on the council tax band you are in? We don't believe it's discrimination. Garden waste collection is not actually part of the statutory waste services the council is required to provide. It's offered as an optional paid subscription for households that wish to participate. I wasn't happy with it when it came in. I have to say, now being in control, it is helping our finances. It is, of course, an optional thing. You don't have to buy it. I'll say this with a degree of irony, I suppose, that you can put garden waste in your black bin, and then there will be people saying, oh, well, that's only gone 3 weekly. I hear you. I talked about composting earlier. Our charges, even at the top end, are very, very competitive when I compare Wokingham, where they charge £90 per bin right across the board. Windsor and Maidenhead, £88. We felt that I pay more council tax since I've got a larger house than my neighbour. And we worked on the basis, could people in larger houses, probably with more garden waste, pay a bit more? Those may resent that. My own son has said, I'm going to compost more and not take your garden bin, Dad. I said, thank you, I've lost some money, but never mind. But 52%, Martin, are paying less. And we think perhaps they can't afford to pay as much. That's the best response I can give you. I think it's fair. I don't think it is discrimination. And it was a case of trying to get the price down to enable more people to more easily access it. And that covers another question where Ross asked about the justification for charging garden waste green bins in line with council tax bans. Cornelia from Newbury talks about the rubbish bin system needs a total redesign, and there must be a more effective way to make it easier for the staff doing the collection. Well, I got a bit of grumbling from somebody who my wife went to see in Goring, who had lived in West Berkshire, and she said, I now put everything into, I think it's a brown bin in Goring. But by putting everything in one bin, so paper, bottles, cardboard, plastics, that then goes to a material recycling facility, a MRF. And people work in there to separate it. We lose recycling as a result of that. Not us, but people who use that one bin recycler. It's not as efficient. Our recycling rates will be better because of it. And that makes sense in terms of asking people to separate more at the household. We will keep looking at how we provide those receptacles. I know occasionally it happens to me. The bag blows away, and are you following it down the street? We will look at it, but the overarching design is to recycle more by separation rather than mixing. Hope that's useful to you, Cornelia. Matt from Thatcham. Thatcham has seen a rise in rubbish dumped by council litter bins, and the council put tape on them to say they acknowledge that. When will the previous cadence be re-implemented? Admit this hasn't worked. Well, we're not currently aware of any increased incidences of littering or fly tipping around council bins in Thatcham. At this stage, we need some evidence. We need a bit more evidence, Matt, some photographs or whatever, and we can address that either through West Berkshire Council or Thatcham Town Council. John from Thatcham, why does the council not have adequate provision in place to empty dog waste bins in Thatcham? We are working with Thatcham Town Council. There's a mixed economy in dog waste bins in Thatcham for some reason. Some are the town councils and some are West Berkshire councils. And that needs rationalising and sorting out. So you can have confidence that they're being emptied and that one organisation or local authority is doing so. You talk particularly bin 259A on the footpath surrounding the dip behind Bramwell and Grassmead. It's constantly overflowing and constitutes an environmental and health hazard. And I hear you loud and clear. I'm quite surprised, perplexed, astonished that people with a bag in their hand of the dog waste see the bin and say, I'm going to stuff it in here. I'm going to put it on top of the bin. I'm going to put it on the ground by the bin. When might they not take it home if the bin is full? But the challenge is to get the bins empty so they're not always full. There's been a growth, I think, since COVID of people owning animals and dogs. So that's put a bit of strain on that we've got to catch up on and manage. I've got 5 minutes left. I don't mind overshooting a little bit, but I'm going to go into highways. So I moved that around so I didn't duck waste, but I've got about 4 or 5 here on the highways. I think I'll get through a couple at least. And don't forget, questions I obviously haven't answered, and sometimes I've answered somebody's question in another question, but where I clearly haven't answered a question, that questioner will get a written response. A Tilehurst resident says disabled parking signs in Thiel, which have been present for at least the past 3 years, are still not there. It's a little bit unclear what he's saying. The area I'm referring to is outside the coffee shop called Bradley's 2 parking signs where there is now only one after the road was retarmacked. I tried to contact the council yet again, had a brief reply. It's a complete incorrect area of Thiel. You need to talk to Alan Macrow. And I'll put this through to Alan Macrow. He is the one councillor. Thiel has only one councillor. It's Alan Macrow. Alan walks down Thiel High Street every other Saturday morning, I think it is, with a T-shirt on saying, "I'm Alan Macrow, your local councillor." And he gets stopped by people who talk to him about issues. So the Tilehurst resident, you contact Alan Macrow. I'm going to do it anyway. And I can't understand why this can't be sorted. Cornelia and Newbury, the police have done a great job at controlling the electric scooters in the town. I'd love to hear that. I'm really pleased to hear that. Cyclists weave in and out of speed on the pedestrian street, and they're a danger, specifically older people and children. The pedestrianised parts of Newbury town are a key part of active travel. Active travel. Walk, cycle, don't use a car. And we're looking for cyclists to be able to travel safely across our town. Now, again, a bit like the 20-mile-per-hour speed limits, which I'll come on to, it's a small number of people who cycle without due care and attention. There's some work we should be doing on education in schools about riding your bike safely. We'll look at that. Don't tackle them directly, and they're going a bit fast anyway to do so. You could inform the police on 101. It's harder then for them to track them down. There's no registration number. But we work with the police to try and address this. It is antisocial, and your point is well made, and there are things we will look to do. I've given an example in terms of education. Charles in Pangbourne, could you review your schedule for painting white road lines, including pedestrian crossings, and cleaning road signs? Well, road signs in this district are not being cleaned for nearly 10 years. And we implemented a cleaning program. And we're nearly 2.5 years in. We've cleaned probably 1,000 signs out of 30,000. We have 1,300 kilometres of roads. Some of those 30,000 are roundels, 20 mile per hour. Some are big and highly noticeable. But there is a cleaning program in place that you can see is going to take some time to get around all of them. But Charles, we're addressing it. And there's an awful lot more white lining going on than there has been for years. Even a road that is not due to be resurfaced is good for another couple of years. There are white lines going in. My own road in Lower Way, a white line has gone down the middle. Bus stops are being repainted in yellow. You will see this happening, Charles, across the district. You're in Pangbourne. I'll talk to Matt Shakespeare, your councillor. You can talk to him as well and draw his attention to these areas you're talking about, Charles, and we'll bring them to attention to the highways. There will be a program. to do this sort of thing. And you're seeing not only more white lining, you're seeing more resurfacing being done. Drive around your district, you're starting to ride around your district, you're starting to ride on better roads. There's a lot to do. 1,300 kilometres road is a lot, but we're tackling it. Terry from Great Shefford, I'll make this the last one, I'm afraid. But Terry from Great Shefford, what plans are there for a blanket 20-mile-per-hour rollout? How do you answer the accusation that public consultation is just a PR exercise? Is the data decision data-driven? And we all agree if the speed limit is 10 miles per hour, that would be safer than 20, but very impractical. So is there a trade-off between safety and practicality? Of course there is. Of course there is. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, if any area, after consultation, and it's not a referendum, but we agree that if an area comes forward, and we're out in Thatcham at the moment, and says no, the majority of those who respond do not want it, we will not implement it. But in Thiel, which went ahead, the first one to be done, they did say they wanted it. The main Thiel High Street remains at 30, and all the off-roads, estate roads, are 20. Now, in my experience, I've been driving a long time, driving in an estate road, a cul-de-sac, general estate access, it's quite hard to go more than 20. There are cars parked each side of the road. If you're going at 30, I'm not sure how safe you might feel. There is potential for animals and children and older people, elderly people, ordinary people, sorry, people who are not elderly or young, to walk out. And at 30, you'll do them an awful lot of damage, if not kill them. And at 20, you'll damage them, they'll be injured, but they'll survive. So in areas where it's pretty hard to really go above 20 and feel it's justified, we think it's the right thing to do. We will see what the residents of Thatcham say. It's being rolled out slowly but surely everywhere. It was something we said we would do, but it's not being rolled out with people say they are against it. And it's interesting, even the early responses from Thatcham, there are a lot of people saying there's a lot of speeding down, if you know Thatcham, Painsdown Road is a good example. Quite a long road, accessing quite a lot of houses off it, Crowfield Drive, Ashmore Lane. There's a lot of roads off it. And those residents saying there's a lot of speeding goes down on this road. Speeding actually is quite hard to know what a car is doing, but you sort of know they're going too fast. Now, we'll put the 20 in, if the people of Thatcham want it. And people say, well, what will you do about it if they go above 30? But if you take a road like Painsdown Road, it's quite a long road, and if there is still clear evidence that there is speeding, then we can monitor that speeding. We can do it as councillors. We can do it as the town council in Thatcham. We can get the gun and see the speeding. We can tell the police. The police can come along and do some speed checks. There are things that police will be prepared to do where there is evidence of speeding on a regular basis. That's a long-winded way of saying to you, Terry, it may come to Great Shefford. You may object to it there. And if enough people do, it won't happen. This is not a PR exercise. It is where people feel it will be safer, we'll implement it. We're coming up 5 minutes past 7, and I hope I've tackled issues head on. I don't know if there's any final ones that come in on the chat or interactively there, Martin. You haven't been drawing my attention to them.
No, I've been keeping an eye. I just leave on this note. Just had a comment just come in to say this is a good idea, and please keep up the good work. So we'll end on that note.
Yes, let's end on that note. We will keep doing this. we want to address the issues that matter to you. All these councillors here are residents as well. Thank you ever so much and have a good evening.